given in the constitution itself. Okay, now fundamental question to all of you is a violation of the constitution defined in the constitution? Is it defined in the constitution? What amounts to violation of the constitution? The constitution says that he can be removed for the violation of the constitution, but is it defined in the constitution? That is my question. Is it defined anywhere? How many of you think yes, it is defined in the constitution? How many of you think it is not defined? And how many of you is of the opinion I don't have an idea, sir, for this particular question? Now try to understand all that the constitution says is that the president can be removed for the violation of the constitution. But what amounts to violation of the constitution is not defined anywhere. But you can have a general understanding that the president is supposed to do certain things under the constitution. And if he's not doing that, then he is violating the constitution. Now, can anyone give me an example? What can be seen as a violation of the constitution? So I'm saying that the president is supposed to do something, but if he is not doing that, then that would amount to violation of the constitution. So can someone tell me what amounts to violation? What is Article 74 of the Constitution? Can anyone recall what is Article 74 of the Constitution? Very good. He has to act in accordance with the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. All right. So if the Council of Ministers are giving some advice, but the president is doing something on his own, can that be seen as a violation of the Constitution? Because as per the Constitution, he is supposed to act in accordance with the aid and advice which is given by the Council of Ministers. And in that way, we are making sure that in our country, the president is not the real executive. Who is the real executive? The Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. And the president is bound to act in accordance with this advice. So if the ministers are advising something, the president is doing something, then that means he is violating the constitution and for which he can be impeached. But however, till this point of time, not even a single president has been impeached in our country. That's a different story. Not even an impeachment motion has been introduced. That's a different story. But yes, there is a provision for his removal. But make sure that this violation of constitution is not defined in the constitution. But basically, when he violates the constitution or he acts contrary to what he has to do under the constitution, it can be seen as violation of the constitution. So here you can use the example of Article 74. That he basically act in accordance with the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. Just to give you a conceptual clarity. All right. So this is basically what you'll have to understand. And he continued to hold office. Suppose the president assumes the office. This is very, very important. He continues to hold office even after the expiry till the successor assumes the office. Now, what is the term of the president? I said, since the time he assumes office, it is for a period of 5 years. Now, what normally happens in our country? This is exactly, I think most of the students are making mistakes. So this is something that you have to understand. So normally what happens in our country is, suppose if the president term is coming to end, that his 5-year term is going to get over. So before the term is over, the new president has to be elected. Try to understand that. Before Mr. Ramnath Kovind term was over, Mrs. Draupadi Murmu was elected as the president. And on the last day, when a term will over, the new president will assume the office. But suppose let us assume the new president is elected, but the new president is not able to assume the office. And the incumbent president, his term has expired. So in this case, what will happen? Suppose, just try to understand this particular scenario, that the new president is elected and the outgoing president, his term is over, his or her term is over. But on the last day, the new president is not able to assume the office. Maybe the new president-elect met with an accident, or he is hospitalized, or he is suffering from some ailment, so he is not able to assume the office. So in this case, who will act as the president? Because the previous president term is over now. So the vice president will discharge the duties of the president, or the outgoing president would continue to be the president. Now try to understand in this case what the constitution is saying. In this case, the outgoing president would continue to be the president. That is what is very, very important. The vice president will not become, because the constitution allows for that. Okay. So the outgoing president would continue to be the president of India in this particular case. This, I think most of the students think that the vice president will act as a president. No. When the term is over because of the expiry of the term, if there is a vacancy because of the expiry of the term and the new president is not able to assume the office, but he is elected. So who would continue to be the president? The outgoing president would continue to be the president. And as per the Constitution of India, anybody who is elected as a president, before he assumes the office, he has to be administered an oath. And who will administer that oath? It is the Chief Justice of India. In the absence of the Chief Justice of India, the senior most judge of the Supreme Court has to administer the oath. And without this oath, he will not be able to enter into the office or assume the office. And where is this oath mentioned? Is it mentioned in the third schedule of the Constitution? If you see the third schedule of the Constitution, there are certain oath that is mentioned. Is this oath mentioned in the third schedule of the Constitution? Of course, it is not mentioned in the third schedule of the Constitution. So third schedule, do not get confused. This oath is mentioned inside the article itself, inside a specific article, but not in the third schedule. In the third schedule, there are oath for the MPs, ministers, for the CAG and all those people, judges of Supreme Court and High Court, but not for the president. So do not confuse in your mind that this oath is mentioned in the third schedule. No, it is mentioned directly inside the Constitution. And anyone who is elected as the president, he is eligible for re-election. Is there any restriction as to how many terms he can be a president? Under the Constitution of India, there is no restriction. There is no restriction as to how many terms he can be a president. Okay, so that has to be very clear in your mind. Okay, so these are all the very important things that you have to understand. And of course, I said that the president can be impeached or he can be removed from his office under what ground? For the violation of the Constitution. Is it defined in the Constitution? It is not defined in the Constitution, but how he can be removed, that process is given in the Constitution. I'll just come back to that particular process, okay? So before I proceed further, now I wanted you to solve a couple of questions to understand as to what kind of mistakes you have made. Come to the questions and then I'll proceed further. Online students, you also come to the questions. So probably I think first one or two questions we'll be able to solve by this time. Now we will understand earlier if you have made any mistakes. Now you would understand as to what kind of mistakes you have made in how you process the information. All right, so just have a look into the first question. With reference to the election of the President of India, consider the following statements. So this question is related to the election of the President. Statement 1. The value of vote of MLA varies from state to state. Is it true? We understood that because it is based on what? Population and the elected MLAs. So is it going to vary? So this is definitely true, correct. 2. The value of vote of MPs of the Lok Sabha is more than the value of vote of MPs in the Rajya Sabha. Is it true? The value of vote of MPs of the Lok Sabha is more than the value of vote of MPs in the Rajya Sabha. Is it true? It is not true. It is false because the value of vote of an MP is the same, irrespective of whether they are in Lok Sabha or in Rajya Sabha. Just now we have understood this. So previously, if the students have made a mistake, now you can understand what exactly is a mistake you are doing. So 3 inferences we have drawn. I'm just repeating those inferences. So whenever you attend this class, so I wanted you to take notes of whatever I'm saying. And whenever you solve a question, I wanted you to take notes side by side so that you do not make a mistake again. And that will act as a area where you can revise it very quickly. And next time when you see this again, immediately you'll understand what kind of mistakes you have made. So 3 inferences, I'm repeating it again. The value of vote of an MLA is going to vary from state to state. The value of MP is the same, irrespective of their houses. And the value of MP is always going to be higher than the value of a MLA, irrespective of the states. So this particular thing is definitely wrong. So which of the statements given above are correct? What is correct? Okay, now tell me how many of you earlier made a mistake in this? How many of you made a mistake? So, Ilakya. So, what mistake you made? You selected D, that means you thought both are wrong. And you thought this is also wrong. So, now you got that understanding. You got it right earlier? You got it right? Very good. You got it right? I think online students also, now you will understand if you have made any mistakes. So this is how we are going to touch upon each and every area. Okay, quickly come to the next question. Come to the next question. So solve this particular question. Now you will understand as to what kind of mistakes you have made in the question solving these questions. So consider the following statements. So if you have understood whatever I thought till this point of time, you will not make a mistake here. If you have made a mistake earlier, now we'll get it right. Solve this question. Consider the following statements regarding the President of India. The electoral college of the president includes members of both the houses of the parliament, both elected and nominated. Is it true? Does the electoral college includes both elected and the nominated? It includes only the elected members, not the nominated. So if you say it is nominated, then it is definitely wrong. So just now you have understood. It does not include the nominated members. So this is wrong because it includes only the elected members. Come to statement number 2. A sitting member of parliament or the state legislature cannot contest election to the office of the president. Is it true? A sitting member of parliament or the state legislature cannot contest election to the office of the president. Is that true? Can a sitting member contest election or not? Go to your conditions of office. Go to the conditions of office and the qualifications. What the qualification is saying? Just read the qualifications. It is about qualification. It is asking whether he is eligible to contest election or not. In the qualifications, what you have seen? Can anyone read out the qualifications? Yes, can you read out the qualifications, whatever you learned? Yes, what is your name? Can you read out the qualifications? Qualifications to contest election to the office of the president. Citizen of India, then completed 35 years of age, eligible to contest election to Lok Sabha, which includes that he has to take a oath in front of an authorized authority. He should be a registered voter. And the next thing is he should not have an office of profit. Now, what is an office of profit? He should not hold any office either under the central government, state government, or under the local authorities. But here, a sitting member of parliament or a member of state legislature is not an office of profit. Because he is not a minister. So most of you might confuse this to be an office of profit. I categorically said, what is an office of profit? It should be an office either under the center, state, or under the local authorities. But he is an MP or an MLA. So an MP or an MLA is not an office of profit. They can, of course, contest the election. So, but the statement, what it is saying? It is saying that they cannot contest the election. So is it true or false? It is false. They can contest the election. This is incorrect. The statement is incorrect. Is it clear to all of you? Now come to the third statement. The emoluments and allowances of the president are determined by an act of parliament. Is that true? It is determined by an act of parliament. Only the parliament can increase or it can decrease. In fact, the parliament cannot decrease. It can increase that. So now tell me how many of the statements given above are incorrect. How many of the statement? It is not asking which of these statement. So again, do not make a mistake here. That's why I'm putting you across all this practice. So how many means overall out of the 3 statements, how many statements are incorrect? What is the answer? 2 statement or 1 statement? So first statement is incorrect. Second statement is incorrect. So which is the answer? Option B. So now you will understand if you have made any mistakes. So this is exactly in the subject polity, probably you will make a mistake. All right. So now you come to the next question. Let me see that we have done with the next question also. Is it possible with the information we have? Consider the following statement. Okay, vacancy, I have not touched it. So probably we'll have to proceed further. So I'll cover a little bit of ground for another half an hour. Probably we'll be able to solve another couple of questions. Okay. Okay, now you have understood 2 questions as to what kind of mistakes you are making. Now come to the topic that I have been discussing. Okay, so come to the next topic, that is the procedure for impeachment. Okay, let me just take a moment to consolidate whatever you have seen. So we understood that there is an office of president who is the head of the union executive. And then the president office have got certain qualifications. So qualification means only those possess the qualification, they can contest the election. Not just the qualification. Once you contest the election, then to hold on to that particular office, there are certain conditions. So you'll have to look into those conditions as well. And then who can actually vote in the presidential election, who are part of the electoral college, and what are the principle of election, that is how the values are calculated and all those things. We understood what is the value of vote of an MP and MLA and the inferences out of it. And then his term of office also we have understood what are the terms that he can occupy and all those things. And then finally, we have also understood that the president can be removed from his office. On what grounds? On the grounds of impeachment. Now, what is the process that is given for the impeachment? That is again very important. So first, who can, the overall process, if you see with regard to the impeachment of the president, you'll have to understand that the president can be impeached by the parliament. Who is authority to do this? Who is authority to remove the president? The parliament. The parliament is the authority. And in the parliament, a proposal has to be introduced. That proposal will contain that we wanted to remove the president because the president has violated the constitution. So who can introduce that proposal in the parliament? Whom do you think can introduce that particular proposal in the parliament? Any member of parliament can introduce that. So try to remember this. Any member of parliament can introduce that. And it can be introduced in either houses. It can be introduced either in the Lok Sabha or in the Rajya Sabha. So it has to be introduced. The only condition that is given in the constitution is that MP, before introducing that proposal in the parliament, has to give a 14 days prior notice to the president. That means, Mr. President, we are not happy because you have violated the constitution. So we are going to introduce such a proposal. And this has to be informed to the president before introducing how many days prior? 14 days prior to that. And one more condition that is given in the constitution is that although the president is informed before 14 days, one more condition that is given in the constitution is that a person, an MP who wanted to introduce that, this proposal should be supported by minimum 1/4 of the total members in that particular house at the time of introducing. Suppose if the house is having 100 members, it has to be supported by how many members at least? 25 members. So in the same proportion, it has to be supported. Then only the proposal can be introduced. So this is for the introduction. So try to keep both the things in your mind. It has to be supported by minimum 1/4 of the members. And then a 14 days of prior notice has to be given to the president. And then the proposal can be introduced. So once it is introduced, then the house will look into that. And after it is introduced, if the house have to accept that, it has to pass it with certain majority. And what is that majority here? It is a special majority. And what is that special majority? It is not less than 2/3 of the total membership of the house. Suppose if the proposal is introduced in the Lok Sabha, any member of Lok Sabha can introduce that. And before introducing, it has to be supported for its introduction by 1/4 of the members. And after it is introduced, it has to be passed by not less than 2/3 of the members in the Lok Sabha. Not less than of total membership of the house. That means what is the majority? In case of Lok Sabha, it has to be 2/3 of what is the total membership? 543. Presently, there is no nominated members. Okay. So 543. It has to be a membership of this. And in case of Rajya Sabha, what is the majority? 2/3 of 245. So this much majority they should have. Suppose introduced in the Lok Sabha, it will be discussed in the Lok Sabha, and then once passed with 2/3 of the total membership, it will go to Rajya Sabha. And when it goes to Rajya Sabha, this is very important. In the Rajya Sabha, the president has a right to defend himself. Because some MP is saying that the president has violated the constitution. But the president, if you follow the principle of natural justice, the president should have the right to defend himself. He can say that I have not violated the constitution. So the president can represent himself or by a counsel. He can engage a lawyer also in the house. And after it is passed, then the president stands impeached if it is passed by both the houses. Now the question is why this is given only in the second house? Why he will not defend himself in the first house? Because as per the constitution, he can defend himself in the second house, not in the first house where it is introduced. Yes? No, not necessarily in the Rajya Sabha. Suppose let us assume the proposal is introduced in the Rajya Sabha. He will have the right to defend himself in the Lok Sabha. Suppose if it is into the Lok Sabha, he will have the right to defend himself in the Rajya Sabha because it can be introduced in either houses. But he will have the right to defend himself in the second house. Why? Because it does not make any sense to defend in the first house. Because if the first house is not passing it, then there is no need for the president to defend it in the first place. So once it is passed in the first house, in the second house, we'll have the right to defend himself. All right. So I think it is very clear to all of you, this impeachment process. Okay. Very, very important. They can ask you questions from the impeachment as well. Okay. So come to the next topic. I'll just discuss this topic. We'll solve a couple of questions and then we'll take a break for today. Probably I'll continue the remaining things in the next class. Now, the very important thing where most of the students does not have an understanding is what if there is a vacancy to the office of the president? In this area, I've seen many students make a mistake. They assume that they know it, but yes, they do not have the full knowledge. And sometimes question can come from this particular area. Now, vacancy means what are the ways by which office of the president can become vacant. So these are the ways by which the office of the president can become vacant. Say, for example, there is an expiry of the term. That means, what do you mean by expiry of the term? When I say expiry of the term means that uh, expiry of the term means, as per the constitution, the term is 5 years since the time he assumes the office. So after 5 years, somebody else have to occupy the office. So it might be because of the expiry of the term, or it can be because of death. So death means the president suddenly dies in office. That's basically what is death. Or it may be because of removal. Removal means by the impeachment process. That's basically the impeachment. And then it can be because of the resignation or otherwise. Somebody who resigns from the office. That's basically what is called as the resignation. So these are the ways. So resignation, to whom he can address his resignation? To the vice president, he can address his resignation. So we have already seen that. So these are the ways by which, okay, so resignation is one thing. What do you mean by otherwise? So the word exactly used in the constitution is otherwise. Can you give an example of what is otherwise? His term is over, or he suddenly dies in office, or he is removed by impeachment process, he resigns submitting his resignation on his own. Otherwise is a way, say for example, the president office can become vacant because the Supreme Court has declared the election of the president as invalid. Because election of the president can be challenged in the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court invalidates that election. Then the person cannot continue to be in the office of the president. So these are all the other ways apart from these 4 grounds. One example is the Supreme Court invalidating the election. We do not know what way that the vacancy can happen, but we need to have a contingency plan. So what is a contingency plan? When the president office falls vacant, who will act as a president? The vice president of India. So in fact, whenever the office of the president falls vacant, the contingency plan is the vice president of India will discharge the duties of the president. But the vice president is not elected as a president. He's just elected as a vice president, and when the office is vacant, so the vice president is discharging the duties. So what the constitution says, whenever there is any vacancy to the office of the president, and during such vacancy, what is a contingency plan? The vice president. And what is the maximum time for which the vice president can perform this duty as a president? Is only for a period of 6 months when the office becomes vacant. And within a period of 6 months, what has to happen? Within a period of 6 months, the Election Commission of India has to elect the new president. Is that clear? The Election Commission of India has to elect the new president. But whatever is mentioned here, that whenever the office becomes vacant, the vice president will discharge the duties. And for a maximum period of 6 months, in the meantime, the new president has to be elected. So this can apply only in these 4 grounds. If the vacancy arises because of what? Because of death, resignation, removal, or otherwise. If the vacancy arises because of these reasons, who will act as the president? The vice president. And for how long he can act as a president? Maximum 6 months. In the meantime, the new president will be elected. But let us assume the vacancy is arising because of the expiry of the term. If the vacancy is arising because of the expiry of the term, that means the new president has to be already elected. Because as per the constitution, the new president has to be elected before the expiry of the incumbent president. But in this case, the new president is not able to assume the office. So in that case, who will continue to be the president? The outgoing president would continue to be the president of India. I think this is an area where most of the students make a mistake. They think in all the cases of vacancy, who will act as a president? The vice president. That is not the case. The vice president is only in these 4 cases. In this case, who will continue to be the president? The outgoing president. And there is no time limit under the constitution. As long as the new president assumes the office, the outgoing president would continue to be the president. Okay, all right. There is a vacancy in all these 4 cases. Let us assume in these 4 cases, death, resignation, removal, or otherwise. In these 4 cases, there's a dispute. There's a problem. Now, in these cases, the vice president becomes a president. And let us assume the vice president also dies. Then, so who will act as a president in this case? The president office becomes vacant because of the reasons of any of these 4 things. That is death, resignation, removal, or otherwise. So the vice president assumes the office. Unfortunately, the vice president dies. Then the Chief Justice of India will act as the president. Chief Justice of India dies. Then, which has not happened, all these things. If the Chief Justice of India also dies, then the senior most judge of the Supreme Court. So when I was saying this, one of my students was asking, what will if the senior most judge of the Supreme Court also dies? Then in that case, the next senior most judge. There are 33 senior most judges in the Supreme Court. So definitely one will be alive to act as the president of India. In the meantime, the new president has to be elected by the Election Commission of India. That's the contingency plan as of now. Okay. So if the president is not there, vice president not there, Chief Justice of India, Chief Justice of India not there, senior most judge is not there, next senior most judge, then the next senior most judge. Okay. So that is the contingency plan. But all these things can happen only in these 4 cases. In case of expiry of the term, the outgoing president would continue to be the president of India. Okay. So it has to be very, very clear in your mind. All right. So what if there is any election dispute to the office of the president? Suppose let us assume the election of the president is challenged. There is an election dispute. So can the election of the president be challenged? Yes, it can be challenged. The only forum, the only place where it can be challenged is the Supreme Court of India. It cannot be challenged in any of the other courts, not even in the high courts. Where it can be challenged? It can be challenged only in the Supreme Court. Okay, let us assume the election is challenged where? It is challenged in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is looking into this particular matter, say after the case is filed, 6 months later. 6 months later, what the Supreme Court is saying, that the Supreme Court is invalidating the election. The Supreme Court is invalidating the election. Suppose let us assume the Supreme Court is declaring that this election is not valid. So what will happen to the actions that is done by the president in this 6 months? Might be possible that the president has given assent to some bills. Might be possible that the president has made some appointments. Might be possible that the president has convened some sessions in the parliament. So something he has done as a president of India. And now, after 6 months, the Supreme Court has invalidated this election. So what will happen? What about these actions? Or these actions would be continued to be valid? Or because now the election of the president is invalidated, the actions which is done by the president will also become invalid. Now the constitution gives a clarity in this. If the president election is invalidated, try to understand that. The action that was done by the president will not be invalidated. That continues to be valid because it will create a lot of difficulty. So the actions are valid, but he has to step down from his office. So this clarity is given in the constitution that prior acts cannot be invalidated. And further, the constitution also says what is the ground on which the election of the president cannot be challenged. Suppose let us assume somebody is elected as a president. It is not saying on what ground it can be challenged. It is only saying where it can be challenged. Where it can be challenged? It can be challenged in the Supreme Court. But the constitution is giving this clarity. And what is the clarity it is giving? The constitution is giving this clarity as to on what grounds the elections cannot be challenged. So what is the ground on which elections cannot be challenged? The Supreme Court is categorically saying that the election of the president cannot be challenged on the ground that there is a vacancy in the electoral college. Now we understood as to what is an electoral college. Who comprises of the electoral college? Elected members of both houses of the parliament, the elected members of the legislative assemblies of all the 28 states, and the elected members of the legislative assemblies of National Capital Territory of Delhi and Puducherry. So it might be possible that there are some vacancies in these electoral college. Some MP's seat is vacant, some MLA seat is vacant. But still the election commission has gone ahead with the election of the president. Is it a valid election? The constitution says it is a valid election. Because you cannot wait for the election to be completed because the presidential term will get over. And before the term of the president is over, you have to elect the new president. So definitely that is very much valid. Okay. So this is not a ground to challenge election of the president. Okay. The Supreme Court makes it very, very clear. Is it clear to all of you? Every single point that I have discussed is very, very important. Okay. Just 5 more minutes. I'll just complete one more slide. And let us see if we can solve any of the other questions. Okay. So the next thing is the Vice President of India. So let me see if there is any question on President. So Vice President, probably we can start afresh tomorrow. I'll just give the closure of whatever you have discussed. Is there any question apart from this 2 things in President that can be solved? Okay, so I think there's one more question that can be solved. Okay, so from the President of India. So just have a look into the next question. Yes, the online students can also solve this. Consider the following statements regarding the President of India. So consider the following statements regarding the President of India. 1. In case of vacancy to the office of the President, the new President must be elected within a period of 6 months in all cases. Is it true or is it false? Hmm? Statement 1. Statement 1 is true or false? How many of you think it is true? How many of you think it is correct? True? How many of you say it is true? In case of vacancy to the office of the President, the new President must be elected within a period of 6 months. In all cases. So just now we have discussed this. So what are the ways by which vacancy can arise? Tell me. What are the ways by which the vacancy can arise? Vacancy can arise. We have seen that it is because of expiry of term, death, resignation, removal, or otherwise. So the 6 months is for which cases? In case of death, resignation, removal, or otherwise. It is not in case of expiry of the term. In case of expiry of the term, even before the expiry, the new president has to be elected. So now read the statement. In case of vacancy to the office of the president, the new president must be elected within a period of 6 months in all cases. In all cases of vacancy. Is it true or false? In fact, in UPSC, why I put this particular question, in UPSC also, mostly the extreme statements are always wrong. I'm not saying it is always wrong, but most of the times it is wrong. So when I say in all cases, it's an extreme statement without any exception, but we have an exception. Because in case of expiry of the term, the new president should already be elected. It is not that he'll be elected within a period of 6 months. But only in the other cases, he is elected within a period of 6 months. So this particular statement is true or false? It is false. So this is exactly what I'm trying to do in this particular class. This is exactly where the students make mistake. So I'm not saying that it is not a good thing. It is supposed to happen in a subject like polity. The more you read, the more the time you spend, a lot of dots you will connect, which is exactly you can benefit out of this particular class, because as a student, it is not possible for you to make all these dots present. It is going to take a lot of time, which you can exactly benefit out of this particular class. So this is wrong. Any election dispute regarding the election of the president can be challenged only in the Supreme Court. Is it true? This is true. So this is true. So which of the statements given above are incorrect? So the right answer is only one. Okay, now we have solved 3 questions. How many of you in this class have got 3 out of 3 right? Anybody who has got 3 out of 3 right? So none of you have got it right. Any online students have got all the 3 questions right? So before we solve this, if you have solved it, okay, so there can be few students, so probably they are experienced, but I'm very sure that most of the students may not be able to get this connection when you read it, because there are few things that you will not completely understand, which you can exactly benefit. All right. So I'm not going to the other topic because it will take us some time to go to the other topic. So I'll just end it here, probably a little earlier today, because I also wanted to keep the class, so probably around 2 hours to 2.5 hours, so that we are not overburdened. But tomorrow, what I suggest is, tomorrow when you'll come for the demo class, I wanted you to go through this PDF completely once, so that you will be able to do it better. And also, if you want to read, a timetable has been given. So this is the order that I'll go. Okay, you just have a look at here. So this is the order that I'll go in the class, because this will also be useful only to the students who have got some prior knowledge. A complete fresher will not be able to follow this prelims module, because I'm not doing it from basics. You need to have certain standards so that you can assimilate most of the information. So this is exactly the order that I'm going to do. You can make a note of this. I'll start with the executives, then I'll go to the legislature, then I will go to the judiciary. So then I'll take up the preamble, union territory, citizenship, then center-state relationship, local bodies, constitutional and statutory bodies, representation of people act. important articles, amendments, and schedules, and then finally I'll touch upon the miscellaneous areas. Once I'm done with this, which I think will take me around 10 to 12 classes. Once I'm done with this, after 10 to 12 classes, so probably then I'll move on to the policies and schemes. Then I'll move on to the international relations. So probably you can see that it will be around 15 to 16 classes, probably a class of 2.5 hours. Okay. Probably I can extend that a little more than that, but definitely not more than 3 hours. Okay. So it can be somewhere between 2.5 hours to 3 hours. But today I'm not stretching it more because it is just going to be a demo for most of the students. So probably once we will settle, then it will be a class of 2.5 hours. I want all the students to revise whatever you have learned today. And every day you revise, it gets into your mind. Okay, now what are the deliverables? So now you have just seen a sample of how you are going to proceed. So what are the deliverables that you will get out of this particular course? So let me just add those deliverables. So in terms of deliverables, every day you'll get a PDF like this, which will be kind of revision notes also. So you'll get revision PDFs. And then as a part of this revision PDF, every day you'll have some practice questions. When I say practice questions, so roughly the practice questions somewhere can be between 10 to 15 questions. Okay. And apart from that, once we cover a substantial portion, I'll also solve the previous year questions. I'll try to solve at least 5 years of previous year questions, which will be roughly around 100 questions. So this itself will be roughly around 150 questions. Roughly. And then once the polity section is done, we'll move on to the policies and schemes, where I'll try to roughly cover selectively based on a lot of research around 30 schemes, so that our hit ratio is more, and around 10 acts and legislations. Which is very relevant for your examination. And then finally, we'll touch on the international relations part as I discussed the important areas. So probably here we'll have around 2 to 3 classes. So overall, as I already said, 15 to 16 classes. And what we are expecting is that we are looking for some 45 marks in the prelims examination. So this is exactly what we are looking forward. So if you do this focused approach, I'm very sure it could be really beneficial to all the students. So today, whatever PDF I have given and whatever you have learned, so try to revise it today itself. If you revise this on a daily basis and you solve the questions along with me in the class and you make a note of whatever you do not know, whatever extra thing that you get, I'm very sure that we can easily get 40 marks out of this particular program, where you have to spend say 40 hours with me. So probably around 15 to 16 classes, probably as we will move forward. Okay. So tomorrow again, I'll continue with whatever is pending in the executive, but do not expect me to go as it is there in the textbook. I'm not going to follow the same thing as it is there in the textbook. Probably my style could be little different because I'm going to go as it is there in the Indian Constitution. But I'm very sure that the content that I'll provide will help you to solve the questions that is coming in UPSC. I cannot guarantee 100%, and nobody can guarantee that. If somebody is guaranteeing 100%, that may not be the case. But all that I can guarantee is that yes, you can attempt 80 to 90% of the questions. Suppose there are 20 questions from polity, I'll make sure that you are attending 16 to 17 questions. That is what I'm guaranteeing you, but provided you do your part. You attend the classes, you ask me the doubts after the class, you revise it on a daily basis. If you do your part, and I'm sure that you can do that also. And in IR and policies and schemes also, we'll try to maximize, because that's a very wide area. Constitution, I know that this is the constitution, but based on the experience, we'll try to maximize there also. So probably the idea is that I wanted to help all the students who are part of this particular module to get 40 marks out of the 200 marks from this particular module. And if you can score 40 marks out of this particular module, what else do you require? Is that you need 60 marks out of the remaining 160 marks. You need just 60 marks to qualify in your prelims examination. Okay. So do take it very seriously. And I would wish that be part of this particular program. And if you want any assistance after the class also, you can ask me. And when I done a lot of hard work, and that hard work along with when I started doing a little bit of smart work, it actually helped. So smart work alone will not help. If you've already done your hard work and if you're willing to do your hard work, along with that, if you can add this, then definitely you can also taste the success in this examination. All right. So with that, I'll just wind up the class for today. And I'm very sure that the online students had a wonderful experience. So this is how we are going to do it for all the online students and also for the offline students. Anyways, offline students, you can come and you can just take the PDF, the handouts, and you can attend the classes. For all the online students, we will send the link half an hour. Kundanji, half an hour. So we'll send the link at least minimum half an hour before the classes. And along the link in the email or probably in a group, we'll put up a group once you start coming into the classes. But as of now, we'll do it in the email. You can also download the PDF for the classes. Okay, so make use of that particular PDF and make notes in that particular PDF and keep it as a revision material. And otherwise, you cannot revise the things. You should have some material where you will be able to revise it, say, let us assume within one day, the entire polity. So in that way, if your preparation is there, you will be confident when going to the examination. All right, so that is from my side. So we'll have another 5 minutes. If you have any questions, so probably you can have or you can ask me some question. Online students, if you want to ask any question, you can just raise your hand and then we'll unmute you and then you can ask me the question. And of course, any questions from the offline students also, you can ask the questions. If you have any questions. So same timing. So as of now, the timing will be from 4 o'clock. So 4 to 6:30 is what you can fix. In case we don't have plan to change, in case if it is changed, it will again be in the evening. So probably by 4:30, we'll start it. So as of now, it is 4 o'clock. Any questions from the online students? So this is a whatever you have done is a registration, and today and tomorrow it is a free class, a demo and an interactive class. You can ask the questions also, but from day after tomorrow, probably from Friday, if you have to attend the classes, you will have to take the admissions. And there's a separate admission link that you can find it, or you can reach out to the number that is there. They will also guide you as to how to take the admissions. All right. Any questions from any students online? Any questions from any of you? Any questions, Anil? What is that? Office of profit means that somebody is holding some office. I am occupying some office. So what is the benefit that I'm getting out of that particular office? So that benefit could be in the form of salary. Normally, when you occupy an office in the government gives you salary. And that salary is considered to be an office of profit. So what the constitution is saying, that somebody who wanted to contest election to the office of the president, who should not hold on to any office of profit. That means somebody is already a government servant or having any office of profit, they cannot contest the election. But they can resign from the office and they can contest the election. And somebody was elected as a president, let us assume. So he is already the president. Can the president be a government servant in some other office? That is not a good idea. So somebody was elected as a president, he can be only to hold that particular office. He cannot have any of the other office of profit apart from the president. So office of profit basically means that they should not have any of the other office from where they get a salary or remuneration, something. That is basically what is office of profit. But remember this office of profit is nowhere defined in the constitution. Online student, just give me a moment, just a moment. I'll just come back. Some questions from the offline students. Yes. Government employees, center, state, as well as the local authorities. So all the three government areas, they can be seen as what is an office of profit. Panchayat office, municipalities, where they're employed in the Panchayat and municipal office, all these people, if they're drawing any salary or if it is receivable, they will come under the office of profit. So try to unmute the online student. Okay, online student, please raise your hand. Okay, so sir, can you explain the sitting president continued office after completing the tenure? That means if a sitting president, so as per the Constitution of India, the president has got a 5-year tenure. Once he assumes the office, the term is normally 5 years. So within that 5 year, the new president has to assume the office. But what if the new president is not able to assume the office? If the new president is not able to assume the office on the day when his term is expiring, then in that particular case, the incumbent president, whoever is the president, can continue to be the president till the new president assumes the office. Say, for example, today Mrs. �द्रौपदी Murmu is the president and her term will come to an end, say after 5 years from the time she assumed the office. And as per the Constitution, before her term is over, the new president has to be elected by the Election Commission of India. But what, unfortunately, if the new president is not able to assume the office for any reason, then Mrs. �द्रौपदी Murmu will continue to be the president of India till the time the new president assumes the office. That's exactly what is given in the Constitution. Is that clear to all of you? Any other questions from the offline students? Is that clear? Okay, so try to revise whatever we have seen today, and tomorrow I'll try to complete the president, and if time permits, you can read something in the Parliament chapter also. So before coming to the class, so who can maximum benefit out of this course? Students have already gone through polity. So someone who is completely new to polity, they may not benefit because it's a prelims revision module. So there are certain limitations. I cannot go explain in detail, which as I would do in a foundation course, which is not the case here. Here it is just a quick revision of most of the things. All right. So please unmute the student online.
Sir,
Yes, student, can you ask me a question?
So what about the pardoning powers of the president, sir?
So if you are comfortable, you can ask the question. We have unmuted you, or otherwise you can put it in the chat box also. Yes, I think it is coming as Zoom user. So can you ask the student, please? Can you ask me a question?
Sir, what about the pardoning powers, sir?
What about the
pardoning power of the president, sir?
Pardoning powers and all those things we will discuss. We have not yet completed the topic. So as we'll proceed, we'll see that. So
okay, sir.
Because today we are completing class because of the time restriction. So whatever is given in your handout and whatever will come, I'll cover all these topics, but not everything can be covered in a very single class. So we'll cover it up tomorrow. Any other questions from any of the online students? All right. So I wish you all the students who are part of the interactive session today to be part of the program. And I'm very sure that it will immensely benefit you. So we'll meet again tomorrow for the class. And students who are interested in taking the admissions, you can just reach out to the link that is given in the video. Okay. So thank you very much. Is there a question? Is there some question after? Okay. So we'll just wind up the session for today. So we'll again meet tomorrow, but do revise whatever you have seen in today's class. Okay. So thank you very much. All the very best and God bless. Okay. If you have any questions, you can ask me after the class also. Okay. So thank you very much. Online students, thank you. We'll again meet tomorrow and we'll continue with this course, which is going to be extremely useful to all the students. All the very best. God bless.